Hey, how's it going, y'all? My name is Draco, and this is my presentation on Fela Anikulapo Rebellion, Legacy, and Kalakuta Republic. For this side, I'm just going to read off of it, but I promise all my insights are not going to come just reading off the slides. But today, we're going to learn how the famous multi-instrumentalist and Pan-Africanist icon challenged the legitimacy of the Nigerian government, the Western powers, and left behind a legacy that inspires us to recognize the true power of music. Um, in Fela's time, he has released 50 albums, been part of several bands, Kula Lubidos, Africa 70, Egypt 80, and has toured all of the world and is credited for being the pioneer of Afrobeat music as we know it today. Um, he was born in Abeokuta, Nigeria, and comes from a long line of activists. Sorry, I should go back. He is also has collaborated with countless musicians, and he has made an imprint on the hip hop world as well. And yeah, he's performed with Hugh Masekela, Tony Allen, sorry, and yeah, he's left behind an awesome legacy that I hope to share with you today. One point of interest that we'll be talking about today is Fela's recording studio slash home slash commune, Kalakuta Republic. Here his family lived, his kids would be sent off to school, and he would create his music, and he would also create a platform for revolutionary thought in Nigeria. Along with Kalakuta Republic, he opened a venue called Africa Shrine where he would perform and bring not only politics into the conversations about in his music, right, but also Yoruba spirituality, you know, and basically created a platform in which people could change their minds because Nigeria, for as long as the modern state of Nigeria has existed, brutal dictatorial regimes have been in charge that have limited people's expression and are rooted in Catholicism. And so, or not Catholicism, but Christian principles, right, that are lead to homophobic legislation and lead to anti-traditional religious policies, right? So that's what the space he had created here. But General Obasanjo, the dictator of Nigeria, eventually burned down the commune in 1977, and now it is a museum to his life. Yeah, like I said, Fela was born to a pretty affluent family. This is Funmilayo Ransom Kuti, and she is Nigeria's most famous feminist. And she launched a movement that removed a tax in Nigeria law that taxed women just for being women. His dad, Israel Ransom, he was a preacher, so his Fela's first introduction to music was through gospel music, right? Coming from a very affluent family, the parents had high standards to him and wanted him to go off to school to be a doctor. Fela chose to lie and went to the Trinity School of Music in London, but quickly he got bored with all that since he was tired of hearing about music from a Western perspective. And you have to remember too that when the time Fela was born, 1938, Nigeria was part of Great Britain. So, he didn't really feel like Western education in music was going anywhere with him. He took what he could, but he eventually learned all he could from starting his own bands, one of them being Kula Lubidos, which got him pretty famous and released several awesome records. As he would perform and as he kept, getting fame with Kula Lubidos, he wanted to have his own authentic sound, so in Ghana, he went about blending in all different styles of music like traditional salsa, traditional Yoruba rhythms, jazz, and created what we know as Afrobeat today. Um, he would then be establishing himself very well in Ghana and Nigeria, to the point where he took the opportunity to branch out more and do a 10-month stay in the United States. And when he went to the United States, he was radicalized by a woman who taught him about the Black Conscious movement in the United States, and got introduced him to the readings of Malcolm X, and they created several tracks here, like Upside Down, and one of his most first famous albums was the '69 Los Angeles Sessions with his new band name, the Nigeria 70. It was then when he moved back to Nigeria, he changed his band name to the Africa 70, because he wanted his music to represent what it was to be African in this westernized worldview, right? Since, in Nigeria, colonialism has especially left its mark, to where basically the regimes of independent Nigeria are no different than the regimes led by the British. You know what I mean? So to way to combat that, fella would use his music to highlight African, well, particularly Yoruba culture, right? But by extension, African perspective and African culture as a whole, and using his platform to stand up against oppression. One of his most famous songs that he wrote was Zombie, and it was about how, cops are just zombies. They just, you tell them what to do and they do it, and with all of this, fella created Kalakuta Republic and created his platform, and gained a lot of heat on him from the Nigerian government. He was being arrested constantly, and he especially got on the target of the dictator ruler of Nigeria, General Obasanjo, who was fellow's personal friend as well. Not personal friend, but they grew up together. And yeah, Obasanjo got tired of fella using his musical movement to challenge the West and to challenge his rule. So in 1977, he burned down fella's recording studio. And in that tragedy, Funmilayo Ransom Kuti was thrown off of the third story of the building. And after her death, there was a funeral of 1 million attendees, and this really set fella into a depression. He wasn't touring as much anymore. He wasn't branching outside of the Africa Shrine where he would perform, and eventually he did rebound and created a new style of Afrobeat that was, frankly, is rarely replicated today. In his newer stuff, he focuses on making Afrobeat less like, if you hear Afrobeat today, right, usually it's like 3-minute songs, right? Because that's the music industry standard. But fella songs would be 30 an hour long, 20 minutes long, and would just have moments where the song was happy, was like, about issues, but then it would just be like the same level of degree and of getting you enticed into the music that classical music does. And that's what fella would replicate with tracks like Beasts of No Nation, which was a 20-minute song that talked about the interrelationship between the South African apartheid government, Ronald Reagan, Obasanjo, and how all of these organizations who don't value human autonomy, African autonomy, think that they can give Africans human rights, with like Reagan passing civil rights legislation, act like he's gifting that to the African diaspora in America, when in reality, as you can see, as it says here, human rights are our property. We decide what to do with our human rights. And that's what fella was all about, Here you can see a picture of him with Thomas Sankara, one-time leader of Burkina Faso, also a musician who was a radical Pan-Africanist. And this is where he left his legacy. People, if you listen to his music today, you'll really know everything you need to know about Pan-Africanism and understanding why Black liberation is needed, frankly. I just want to read this one last quote of Kalakuta that says, Music is a spiritual thing. You don't play with music. If you play with music, you will die young. You see, because when the higher forces give you the gift of music, musicians hip, it must be well used for the gift of humanity. And is my personal opinion that is the legacy that Fela has left for musicians everywhere. This idea of using your music to address the problems in society. Look at Public Enemy, look at Akala in the UK. Look how, I mean, that's how hip hop was birthed, right? Was out of that same spirit. So I like to say that Fela's message very much resonates with that of American hip hop culture. And I honestly would say that the vibrations he let out in his career might have helped manifest that, and vice versa, right? Since after all, Fela was radicalized in the US. So all in all, I think despite Fela's well-known misogyny, I would say that he has left an impact that can't be ignored in the music industry. So this is my presentation. Thank you all for listening. Hope you have a good day. Peace.